listening to the Nerdy Reads podcast, a hipster goblin media production.
Hey guys, welcome to the Nerdy Reads podcast. You guys know we've been doing book clubs. Today we start our brand new one on Dungeon Crawler Carl. Let me tell you guys a little bit about Matt Dinneman. He is a writer and an artist from Gig Harbor, Washington. He is the author of this best-selling Dungeon Crawling Carl series, along with several other books about the end of the world. He doesn't really hate Cocker Spaniels, and he plays bass in 2 bands. So sounds like a super interesting guy. I can only imagine based on what we've read so far of this book. He's the author of this one today. Robert, what's it about?
Dungeon Crawler Carl is about a retired Coast Guardsman now working on boats. He's left alone with his ex-girlfriend's cat, Donut, and Donut gets out of the apartment one night because cats are jerks, and Carl's like, yo, Donut. He goes outside to get her. It's in the middle of winter, so my man's in some boxer shorts and some Crocs trying to chase this cat down, and everything collapses. Boom! Basically, the world ends, and that is the gist of the story. Some aliens have come to Earth, destroyed everything, and put all the occupants who were not under a roof, which I assume will be important later. If you were outside when this happened, you can't be in a car, you can't be in an apartment building, you survived, and tunnels open, and you go into this dungeon, and there you go.
So right out the gate, this one starts off and you can kind of get the vibe of what this is. It's going to be a story that is full of that gaming humor because it just has that vibe to it, you know, and you could tell. Now, I will say that, so when Donut jumps out of the house, because it's his like girlfriend or ex-girlfriend's cat, and he's like, oh, I'm just going to let her go out there and freeze. He's like, it's 20 degrees. I better go get her. So he's out there at 3 o'clock in the morning, like yelling for Donut to come in. When the whole world collapsed, I kept having to go back and look over that again. I'm like, okay, what's going on? You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Did every building in the world just essentially just, because the way that they described it happening, and I'm glad we're talking about it, is like that it wasn't like a crumbling. It literally was just like
imploded.
Yeah, just like a voom, and it's just gone. Like, and you could see remnants of it all, but it's just like everybody who's been in those buildings were crushed and killed.
Right. So they had to, in that dungeon that he goes into, there's 18 floors. And I guess seemingly all the buildings that just kind of imploded and disappeared, now it's like makeshift up floors in the dungeon. So that's kind of where everything went. Like these aliens, the Borant Corporation was monitoring Earth, and when it got to a certain point, they're like, okay, they're ready for our little apocalyptic game show, and they just poof.
Yeah,
there you go.
I'm gonna say that this is we're only the first 19, and I've stayed true to it. I have not read any further than the first 19. I don't know how it has taken us this long to get into the LitRPG game, because this book could not be any more up our alley. It's literally everything that we built this podcast on is like gaming and books and storytelling. It's just, this book is, I mean, it's amazing so far.
It is. I'm like you, dude. I was like instantly drawn in because I love video games, and like the 18 floors, you got to clear a dungeon. The first game that came to mind for me was the original Diablo.
Sure.
When you're in Tristram and you're under there doing your thing. But then like he gets in there and he starts unlocking achievements, and it's all very video gamey achievement stuff. And he gets loot boxes, which give him better gear. And he even starts leveling up his stats throughout the thing. And I love it, dude. I absolutely wish somebody would have put me onto this genre sooner.
For those of you who maybe are not familiar with this, because I'm going to let's be completely transparent here. Robert and I weren't 100% sure what LitRPG was a year ago.
And I went in blind too to this novel, so no idea.
And so for those of you who are like, hey, what is LitRPG books? They're basically like, you're going through and you're reading about a person who's basically living out an RPG video game. Like, in real time, because in this, these aliens are in their heads, and they'll say things to them in their heads like, hey, Carl, welcome to, you're going through this thing, blah, 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 and give them the rules of the game that essentially that they're playing. And then they go in, when he goes into the dungeon, there's a safe zone. And when he goes into the safe zone, there's the rat, which is like one of the characters, and he helps them by giving them advice and guiding them to what it is, what it's going to take to basically conquer this dungeon. And if you get to a certain level of the dungeon, you have the option to basically like serve in the next set of dungeons when another world does it. But all of it's for this corporation, because all these other alien worlds are watching as humans and whatever other alien races go into these dungeons and basically slaughter and or they get killed, and they can even sponsor different people who are going through these dungeons. And I think I mentioned this to you, Robert, like the humor in this, like from the AI or the aliens that are talking to them, I kept thinking Fallout. Yeah. Just from like the things that they would say.
It's got that very post-apocalyptic like humor that Fallout's known for in this novel. Yeah, for sure.
Like Carl gets a dude. I know we said weren't sure we could say it. We're going to say it, but Carl gets this armor, and it's like a shiny armor of some sort. I couldn't like the description of it was like, this armor's great. It's if you're wanting to do X, Y, or Z, or if you're trying to sleep with a vegan or something like that. It was just like the humor in this book is hilarious. Like, and if you're into that kind of stuff, Borderlands, any of that kind of fun gaming with like that lightheartedness, but still, this book's dark. Let's not get that twisted. You got to have this humor, or else this book would be just very depressing, because everything that's going on is uber depressing. The world's ending essentially, and he's watching. As you can look at the TVs, there's TVs through this dungeon, and he's basically watching as you see the number of people alive in the dungeon continue to drop.
Yeah, they continue to whittle down. And part of that humor too is Donut. Like that's Carl's ex-girlfriend's Beatrice. The only reason he has the cats because Beatrice is like gone, dude. She's out. She was on a vacation. Carl caught her on the IG. And now he's got Donut. Well, one of my favorite parts of the book is like early on, Donut like eats a weird biscuit, and then all of a sudden Donut can talk. And I love it, dude. And Donut is so far my favorite character. She's a beast in stats. She shoots magic missiles out of her eyes. Like I said, it's all very video gamey. My favorite thing Donut did, she's like, oh, this tiara or whatever, the tiara, it's purple, it's beautiful. And she puts it on.
Mm-hmm.
Not even reading what it did, it like cursed her, and now she's like royalty to some thing that's going to come up later in the book, which is pretty awesome. And another part where Donut is going back and forth. The back and forth between Donut and Carl is fantastic in this book.
Mm-hmm.
But she even let Carl know, oh yeah, dude, while you were at the gym, Beatrice was seeing some other dude who would come over. My man found out real quick his girl was for the streets.
As we like to say on this show, she was trifling.
All because a cat let him know, hey man, you a chump.
Yeah, dude. And you know what's funny is I think, was it last week? It was the episode Virgil was on. Was that last week?
Yeah.
Or the last time?
Yeah. Virgil was on.
And we had that question was would you rather have a talking cat or a dragon? We had no idea there was going to be a talking cat in this book. Just so you know, when we asked that question, does your answer change now? Just out of curiosity.
Nah, dude, you gotta have a dragon. I
mean, I did. You wouldn't want Donut, bro?
Bro, Donut's cool. Like, I ain't gonna say no, but I'm gonna feel better about my chances of survival with the dragon.
Yeah. And then there's some twisted stuff in this. So it's very much a RPG MMO-esque style thing. Because right now our boy Carl's crushing cockroaches with his feet, basically scarabs or scabs or whatever they're calling them. And there's goblins and all of these things. And Carl's finding out that like explosives in rooms is the way to go, because he's basically blowing up all the boss rooms and then going in and doing the looting of it. But, I had a question about something with this. I'm trying to think of how to ask this, because there's been some things where I'm like, well, what is this exactly gearing us towards or shifting us towards?
The first, probably I'd say 10, 11 chapters of this book was very much like the introduction to a video game. Like
Yeah.
we're learning as Carl's learning how this video game works, how his stats go up and all that stuff. You really start kind of getting into like, okay, the floor is going to collapse. Every floor collapses after so many days. You have to find an exit. There's a limited number of exits. And eventually the goal is you got to get to floor 18 and only one person can make it out. So that means at some point we're going to have human on human conflict, because there's not going to be enough doors outside of the dungeon trying to kill them. They're going to start trying to kill each other.
Yeah.
And Mordecai, that little rat he meets in the tutorial dungeons, kind of explaining all this stuff. And the book really kind of gets going when they do their first like city boss fight against that like 15-foot tall woman.
The Hoarder.
That's
my question is, you know, because he was talking about how when he was fighting her, she was clearly didn't want to be there, right? Like, because she's like speaking in a different language, he can't understand what she's saying, but clearly like she's in distress. And I guess what I was kind of thinking, because Mordecai got to level 11, right? Before and when he got to level 11, he was able to become be in the safe room and basically be a guide. And as long as he did it for so many dungeons, then he got freedom, I guess, or whatever it was.
Right.
I'm wondering, because he was like, don't take 10 or anything like that. It's not worth it. And I'm wondering if you take it at an earlier level, like the out, because I think after you get to like floor 10, you can take an out essentially, right?
Yeah,
like,
I caught that too.
So I'm wondering if that girl who was the Hoarder, I wonder if she was somebody who got to 10.
Oh,
and said, okay, I'm out. And then she becomes a neighborhood boss essentially.
Yeah, dude, I didn't think about that, because there are like different tiers of bosses like it is a video game. Like Donut and Carl thought they were something. Donut's like, we're going to be on the TV show after that boss fight, only to find out they killed like the weakest of the weak boss.
Right.
And, dude, it's all very video gamey. The humor, all of it's great. The aliens did host their first TV show, and guess what? Carl and Donut were not nowhere near being on it. They did find another crawler who was killed by some dude named Frank, and they decided to hunt him down.
Yeah.
They haven't ran into him anymore. So like they run into a camp of goblins because they're like, dude, we got to get to floor number 2 and we got a lot of ground to cover. So they run into some goblins, and Donut has such high charisma, much like a role-playing game. She's using speech over combat to get what she wants and to get the goblins to help them. That made me reinstall Baldur's Gate 3. It made me go, you know what? Now I want to play a game like this. And, you know, Baldur's Gate 3 notwithstanding, they get a vehicle from the goblins, but they had to trade them some meth that they got from the llamas.
Dude, that's what this book's like. I mean, I'm saying it was so. That's right, because it's the lava spitting llamas.
Yeah, they got llama spitting lava who are dealing meth.
Yeah, when he looted it, it was so funny because she goes, "Where did he get this? This is dungeon made meth."
Yeah,
and so the goblins are like sitting there arguing over this meth. Like, where did this meth come from? He goes, well, we got it from the llamas. And they're like, we knew they were holding out. And so the goblins go to war with the llamas.
Yeah, Donut and Carl started a meth war between some llamas and goblins. I love the scene where the goblins like came back from trying the meth and they're all like blitzed out of their minds.
Oh my
God.
This book is something else.
It is, dude. And they ended up fighting like a goblin chieftain close to us getting to the end of what we read too. And that was actually kind of like, okay, the goblin chieftain was surrounded by some babies and Carl didn't know it and he blew them all up.
What was crazy is like Donut was like, he goes, was the boss in there? She goes, yeah. After he shoves things, she goes, yeah, and a bunch of babies. He goes, what?
Yeah. And then they got a bunch of achievements for killing kids.
Dude, and the thing is the funniest thing about the achievement is that it's like, the achievement's like, and achievement unlocked, you know, baby killer or whatever it was. And then it's like, but don't worry, babies don't actually die in this world. They go to like some safe land where they respawn the next time dungeon goes. Just kidding. You are a baby killer. Basically, like, it's just this.
And it said the other one was like, war criminal. What's the only thing standing between an innocent child and a happy, fulfilling life? You.
Yeah. So far, I'm not gonna lie, it was really hard. I read this book. I finished the chapters, a few days ago. It's been really hard to wait to do
Dude,
this
I'm
show.
actually excited to jump back in and start
Yeah.
reading it because we are going to continue reading and we're going to read through chapter 35. We're going to end at chapter 35. So
that means we read through 34, right?
we're gonna stop on 36.
Okay, gotcha. We'll stop on 36. Looking forward to this one. So far, this one's been amazing.
Same, dude. They even took a shot at Magic the Gathering players.
Oh,
They
I
cut
know.
me deep too.
I know. I saw that.
Um,
Maybe you should have spent your money on something that mattered instead of cardboard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This really reminded me of the anime Solo Leveling, which is very similar. Like this guy awakens and has powers, and everything he does is leveling him up. And Solo Leveling's great. Endorsement for you to check that out. But I have a question for you, dude. So we're a third of the way through this book now. We're at 19 chapters, and my man's still not on floor 2 of this dungeon. And I'm getting nervous. Like, am I going to have to read all, 7 books to get the full story? Because I'm signed up. I'm just curious.
That's my thing. I think so, because there are. So I went and looked because I was like, man, this is good. And then you realize this is like a full blown, big series of stuff.
Right.
And you're right. There's 7 books total. I have a feeling that if we want to see how Carl and our friend Donut do, we're gonna have to go in on and commit to reading 7 more books.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and take I'm gonna go ahead and I think it's safe to say we're in for a cliffhanger ending.
Yeah,
just based off being on level 1 of the dungeon, 19 chapters deep. But I have a way too early prediction of the ending of this book.
Of this book or the whole series?
This book right here.
All right.
I'm going to tell you how I think book 1's going to end. I might be wrong, but there's times where Donut mentions she really feels like Beatrice is alive. So I think the book's going to end with them running into Beatrice.
Oh, 100%
in this dungeon. That's how I think this first book's going to end.
I think so. I think that's a good prediction. I've felt that myself. It seems like it's the thing that's going to happen because they've mentioned her multiple times. Yeah, and even there was that scene where Carl and Safe Zone guy, man, help me. What's his name?
Oh, Mordecai.
Mordecai. Man, he's an awesome character, but. They look at each other like she's probably not alive, but Donut's convinced. So I'm with you. I think we see Beatrice in this.
Yeah, they reference her a bit. I don't know if it's just because she was Donut's owner, but the best Beatrice reference by far was when the goblin female was like, "Hey, Carl, come back to this room," and Princess Donut's like, as much as I would like to see Carl disappoint another woman, we don't have time. So good.
That was so funny. What do you think is gonna so do you think Carl, my other question for you, since we're asking the questions now and this just came to mind, do you think Carl's just gonna stay a human when he gets the option near the end? I think floor 3 you can change your race.
Yeah, you can change your race.
I have a feeling he'll stay human. What class do you think he'll take?
Brawler, something to do with fisticuffs, monk maybe, but do you think he'll ever get pants? He's still in boxer shorts, man. He's got some knee pads on now.
I don't want to spoil it for us or anything, but just looking at the book covers, my man never gets pants.
Yeah.
He's gonna stay in his boxers, his knee pads,
which is very what is it, Ghost and Goblins on SNES. Whenever you run out of your armor, you're running around on that hard game in boxer shorts. I mean, the video game references are there, dude.
And it's good. I mean, if you're a video game fan, or if you're even I honestly think if you're a fan of fantasy and stuff, and you like a little bit of humor in your book, this is where it's at. I did a little research in the LitRPG genre, and there's mass amounts of these types of things. So and it expands. I mean, there's city building LitRPG books and all these different things. So there's a wide plethora of options out there. But Dungeon Crawl and Carl, man, this is the one. This is it. I'm excited to read the rest of this. You got the last 3 words on this one?
Dungeon Crawler Carl.
Nice.
Princess Donut rules.
Hey, I like that. I'm gonna say LitRPG newest fan right here.
Hey, dude, I'm the same. I am blown away that I enjoy this as much as I did.
Yeah. It's right up our alley. It is so much fun. It's everything that I didn't even imagine thinking I needed, but I actually do. So there you go.
I do want to shout out Adelana Ash. She had this marked as interested on Goodreads, like she was wanting to read it. And me and you were talking about what our next book was going to be. And I was like, you know what? That's going to be Dungeon Crawler Carl. So thank you, Adelana Ash.
Thanks, Adelana Ash. We're excited to be here. We're excited to do this. So keep up with us because we are going to be reading the next few chapters, which will go up to 36, correct, Robert?
Yeah, we're going to stop on 36. We're going to read through 35.
So there you go. Be with us next time for part 2. We're going to finish the year out with Dungeon Crawler Carl. Looking forward to it. Excited. Loving this one so far. Here on Nerdy's Podcast. We enjoy a good story. Believe your story matters. Be good to each other. Stay nerdy, our friends. We'll see you next time.